First error already. There you go. What do you expect? This is our first time we've done a live broadcast, and already I've made a mistake. Not to worry, that's what it's all about. That's what it's fun being live, isn't it? I hope I've actually got my audio on. Yes, I have. Thank God for that. Good evening. Welcome to a not so unplanned episode of This and That, which is our weekly experimenting fun type program where we play around with the bits of technology that we use and see what we can make it do, and see if we can make it do things that we've not thought about doing before. So I hope you enjoy this evening. I would just like to say that all the products we're talking about in this show, we're not sponsored. We're just talking about them because of the products we use. There are other products out there that do the same things like vMix, which we particularly talk about, will do. vMix is what we're using here, but there are other softwares out there, so do have a good look around at what's available. There may be the occasional electrical sparking, cracking sounds during the program. Don't worry, it's not us catching fire. We have a bug killer in the background there, and we have a few flies in the studio this evening, so you may hear the odd crack from that. I have with me this week, watching the program as we put it together, George Price over in the USA. I don't know if you want to say hello, George. Yeah, there he is. And I'm hoping we might have one or two others in with us later. But if you are watching us, there is a chat room in YouTube's watching live facility, so please do join in if you would like to. Say hello. It's always nice to know there's somebody watching us. So do come in and say hello. We've got Steve and George in there at the moment. Good evening, Steve. Thank you for coming along, and I hope this is coming across okay to you. George has a live stream he does himself called the Pendleton Gazette. We will put links to him in the bottom of the description here when we put the recorded version of this up. So do you want to say a few words, George, or are you happy? Oh, you got no audio. Oh, turn your audio on. Why won't it turn the audio on? The wonders of doing it live. Oh, there we are. Right, George, I can probably hear you now. Good evening, George.
I don't know which one I'm listening to. I'm listening to you on Zoom, so perhaps I ought to go back over to listen to you on the YouTube channel.
I think Zoom is more up to date. YouTube's a bit behind Zoom. I think probably best staying on Zoom. Anyway, that's George, who will be with us during the program this evening. So let's move on. You will also, if you're interested in video production, you may also be interested in Tom Sinclair's program, Streaming Idiots, from easternshorebroadcasting.com. Again, we'll put another link into that show in the show notes for this program. Okay, so what's been happening since I last spoke to everybody? Well, I got the Windows 10 anniversary update, and I expected it to break a few things, and it sure did. My webcam stopped working, and it broke the audio in my system, as I found out earlier on today. I couldn't transmit any audio out of vMix. However, we've fixed it all. What you have to watch for when the Windows 10 anniversary update installs is that it changes the name of some of the drivers, and I had to go into my vMix settings and change the names of the capture devices and the speaker devices so that they match the new names that the operating system had given them. Having done that, everything's okay. The webcams I was able to sort out by choosing the video input format, and it was just a case of going through trial and error to find out which one worked. But the defaults do not work, so just beware if you install. Go for it, George.
Your live stream is coming in real well over here in Indiana.
Excellent. I'm really pleased to hear that. I'm very surprised. For those people who weren't with us in the pre part of the show, we're broadcasting at 0.3 megabits, which is absolutely minuscule for video. I'm amazed it's working at all, but there you go. It just goes to show, doesn't it? It's worth trying it. It's only a 360p picture. Apologies if it looks a little blurry, but that's the nature of it when you don't have a lot of bandwidth. Okay, George, so I'm going to move on now and talk about the first of our little demonstrations here. So I will switch back over to my single view here. Now, NDI, if you've been using vMix or any of the TriCaster range of pieces of equipment, you will know is a means of getting video across from your from any of your devices into your production via Ethernet, and it's a rather useful thing. It's all very new at the moment. No cameras currently have any NDI outputs, and indeed there are currently no hardware converters that I'm aware of, apart from this one from Bird Dog TV, which is coming along, but is still not currently available. So how do you use NDI in between times? How can you make good use of it? You can plug a camera into your production system and share it over the network. That's fine. But what else can we do with NDI? The demonstration I'm going to show you is using a old IBM, Lenovo X60, which is a sort of half and half laptop and tablet. And the tablet can be used for writing on the screen directly. I thought, well, this would be rather good if you are trying to do a presentation and you want to be able to just scroll on the screen. It might be a useful thing to be able to do it. So I thought, right, no problem, we'll stick the desktop capture software on the machine, and we'll go from there and see what happens. And I found that the desktop capture would not actually play ball. So I thought, well, how can I get the feed from this tablet into vMix without using connecting monitors and using the HDMI connections? And there's a tool, of course, that we're all familiar with called VNC. And in the old days, if you wanted to share a screen with somebody across your LAN, that was the tool you used. So I thought, right, well, let's give VNC a try. And what I did was I installed VNC on this tablet that you can see in front of me here, and then put the VNC client on my vMix computer, and then NDI captured the vMix into my production. And the end result is that I've managed to create this setup where you can see that I'm in the picture here, but I can now write on the screen of this tablet, and it appears on screen live before your very eyes, as long as everything works, of course. So this could be very useful. So we can demonstrate what we've done. So I've got a tablet, PC, we'll just call that a tab. That's got VNC server running on it, and that is going to my vMix box. That's my little very good high quality artwork here. And then in vMix I'm NDI capturing the VNC. So how can we illustrate that? VNC goes to NDI, something like that, isn't it? And that's how I get my video into the production. So I can sit here and draw smiley faces and all the things, whatever illustrates the point, we can do it. And I think it's just a nice little thing. We can also do clever stuff like I can move myself over there. Using the merge function in vMix, it actually animates me moving around. And we can even go larger using merge, as you can see. It's a very useful effect and very powerful potentially. So that was my little VLC demonstration. Now, the other thing to remember about VLC is that it is a platform independent product. So it will work with Windows, it will work with Linux, it will work on a Mac, even on an Android phone if you've got a rooted phone. I think I spelled that roughly right. So you can bring all these devices into your production just using VLC, which is or VNC. I've written VLC up here and I keep saying VLC, it's VNC. So virtual network computing. If you search Google for VNC, so let's just correct that, VNC, then you will find there's various VNC products out there. One of them is Real VNC, which is what I'm running here. And Real VNC requires a license, but it's a free license, and they will give you a number online, so you can register it. So VNC server on your device, the VNC client on your vMix computer, NDI'd into your production. Jobs are good. So I hope that turns out to be useful for somebody at some point. So we'll go back to the main production now. So you can actually see where I've scrawled VNC on the screen here. I'm not cheating, it works. And the frame rate actually is not too bad. I have to say I was a bit concerned with VNC that it might be a bit too slow. Yeah, I don't think you could play a video over this link, but it's perfectly good enough for doing those sort of interactive whiteboard type of displays. Now, a couple of weeks back, we announced that we were looking at these little boxes, which are Ethernet in one end and Ethernet out one end and HDMI in the other end. I'm going to use my whiteboard in this demonstration. That's why I wanted to talk about that first. So, a few weeks back, we showed you this little box. This was our version 2 box, which basically was an MJPEG compression device. It's designed to connect multiple monitors to one source, and it works very well for that as well. It's quite cheap. It's a nice bit of kit. So I was doing a bit of digging around, and we came across a blog online that talked about these devices in more detail. And we now have the version 3 devices. Now, the version 3 devices differ from the version 2 devices because they output H.264 and they output a UDP stream that you can pick up on the computer. And it wasn't, with the version 2 devices, it wasn't too easy to pick up the stream on the computer, but you can do it. Now, let's have a look at a camera that I've already set up. This camera behind me is running on the device. Now, what you will notice is there's a huge delay, and occasionally the picture will break up as well, which is never a good thing. But if I actually put the audio back on for that camera, I don't know whether you'll be able to hear how long the delay is, but it's quite a long delay. It's about 3 or 4 seconds. So if I clap my hands, you can see very long delay. So how useful is it to us? Well, its uses are obviously limited because of that huge delay, but there are situations where it may still be quite useful. If you've got somebody who you're bringing into your production from outside the studio, it could well be that the little delay that you get there doesn't matter too much. After all, you remember doing live satellite broadcasts in days gone by, and there was always a huge lag on it. So maybe that'll work for somebody. Now, these devices don't just come straight into vMix. The only way you can get the video in is to use the VLC player to pick up the stream from the device, and then VLC will convert it into an NDI stream for you, and as long as you do it that way, it will work. But like I say, the picture quality is good enough, but there's certainly a big delay on there, as you can see. It's just huge, but if you don't mind the delay, that could be good. For 25 quid, these little LKV373a devices are a good capture card, if nothing else. It's probably the cheapest capture card you're going to find around, and the fact that it puts it onto the Ethernet means connectivity is nice and simple too. So we think it's an interesting device, but whether it will suit everybody's use case is another matter. Now, we've received a couple of emails over the last 2 or 3 weeks talking about how to bring multiple guests into a show, and we've said that we would address this. Now, I have with me on the show George over in America, and I'm just going to find your source and switch the audio back on for you, George, because you're not switched on at the moment. There we are. Right, George's audio is now switched on. Good evening, George.
Yeah, doing fine. I really enjoyed that demo. I'm trying to figure out still how you did that.
Which one's that, the little whiteboard demo? Yeah.
That was very clever.
Okay, well, I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. That's much appreciated. Now, I'm just talking about how you can bring multiple guests into a show. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of guests on the show at the moment. It's just George and I. But we can explain how it all works. What we're doing is using a product called Zoom. Zoom is the equivalent of Skype or other meeting type products, but it's a nice product because of the way it works. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to fully demonstrate what I wanted to show you here, but if we have a look at the Zoom output, now you can see a copy of George just disappearing into the distance here, because the picture on the right is what's coming out of my setup here, and the picture on the left is what George is sending into me. So can you actually see the mouse pointer on there? No, you can't. Alright. So when you've got more than one guest in the production, you obviously get a window for each one of them. And what you can do is to capture the individual windows and then bring them into your production as individual guests. Now, it's very hard to demonstrate it without having more people in. I don't know whether I can get anybody else to come in. We have some green. Oh, we have a Mo. A very good evening to you, Mo. He's there. I can hear you.
Well, I'm trying. Yeah.
Now, I've got Zoom running on a separate monitor, and basically I've just captured that display, and that's what you're seeing now. So you're seeing George on the top left here, and the output of my transmission on the top right, which is why it's all disappearing into infinity, and we've got Merle at the bottom of the screen in green for some reason, but that doesn't matter for the purposes of this demonstration. Thank you for coming in, Merle. We will make this as quick as possible. Now, basically, in vMix you can make a virtual input of any of your main inputs. So if you want to separate these guests up, either to green room them or because you want to bring them in as part of a virtual set or something like that, so what we can do for example, if I set up a new virtual input and just set it up to capture the area of the screen that George is occupying, then we now have a full screen of George. And we can do the same for Merle. So now we have them in individual inputs, and we can use those individual inputs as we want to. So you can bring the two inputs into a virtual set with you, or you might combine them and put them on a monitor in a virtual set, or if you want to talk to those guests individually, you can, because you can switch from your own view to, let's say, George, and they're all there all the time, but we've got Merle literally in the green room today at the same time. So you can see by just simply using the facilities within vMix, it is possible to actually capture the individual guests, and bring them in separately and manipulate them separately. Now, I wrote to the good people at Zoom, and I said, really, it would be nice if the individual guests came into their own windows, because it's much easier just to capture with the desktop capture a single window and just bring that into your production. And so I wrote to them, and they wrote back to me, and you can see here that said that it is something they're looking to implement, and the engineering department is working on it. So hopefully we will have some kind of individual windows for each guest facility soon, and that's going to make life an awful lot easier. And I will demonstrate to you now why that is going to make life an awful lot easier. If we get back to our view of the output of Zoom, George has remained in, but we've lost Merle temporarily. Let me just also put the audio back on for Zoom. So the problem can be quite nicely illustrated here. We've got two windows in the Zoom conference. Now, normally, if you just had one person, you would put this in speaker view, and you would get full screen, full resolution video. We're using the gallery view, which enables each guest to come in their own spot. Now, if I was to invite Martin in, who's kindly offered to join us, you will see when he comes in that the screen layout changes. And here we go. Good evening, Martin. Thank you for joining us. Facilities soon, and that's going to make life an awful. Well, I can hear all sorts of echoes. Right, so now you can see that the screen layout has completely changed, and that's a problem, because if you've captured one of these little windows that we could see there, then you're going to have to actually rearrange your virtual views to cope with changes in the display. And if we do get a fourth person in, let's see if I can get Merle back in. Let's do invite to meeting. There we go. So if Merle does join us, you will see that the display layout changes again. At the moment, I've got this set up so that I can see Martin there as an individual view, and he's sitting in the bottom middle of the display. We've got George still. So you can see how we can switch between the guests. I don't think we're going to get Merle in, unfortunately, but obviously when you get a fourth person in, the display gets broken up into four areas, and then obviously when that happens, I would have to recapture Martin in a new position, because it would have all changed relative. I think what we will do, gentlemen, because of the technical problems that we're having and the time that we've been running for, I think it may be a good time to wrap this up, really. But hopefully we've demonstrated there the very basics of how you might bring more than one person into your production, and hopefully that will be of some use. We'll try and work on this a bit more maybe next week, showing how you can bring the virtual guests into a virtual set, because again that's even more involved. So I'd just like to thank Martin and George for agreeing to come into the meeting. Thank you very much, chaps, and enabling us to just see how that works. So what we will do now, I'll just turn their audio off because there's a bit of noise coming in. So we will have a look more into how you can use Zoom, and hopefully they will get this new feature in so that each guest comes into their own window, because that was going to solve a lot of problems. And we'll keep working on that. Anyway, I'm going to bring my first live broadcast, which hasn't gone exactly smoothly, to an end. Thank you for bearing with me and watching. It's been fun doing it, and nerve-wracking as well. I'd just like to thank my virtual audience and my virtual guests for being in the show this week, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again next week. Do stick around. There will be a post show, and we'll try and find out more about what's going on with everybody else as well. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with you on the live stream in a minute.